It's all quiet in the underground bunker. Doors closed, locks bolted. But the Great One isn't just resting on his laurels. He's making sure your weekend is even better by giving you his best. This is the best of Mark Levin.
So I want you to listen to this back and forth between Peter Doocy and the spokes idiot for the idiot at the White House. And just how completely dishonest these people are. They're incompetent. They are ideological. They're driving this country into the toilet. We have an opportunity to mop them out, to broom them out, and to bring in somebody who knows how to run an economy, knows how to run a country, to secure a border, to build up a military, to back our cops and firefighters. It's not even a close call, but for the propagandists in the media and well over $1 billion in lies that they're telling about Trump. See, this is what I know. Trump loves America. He doesn't want to fundamentally transform it. Obama, Harris, the rest of them, they want to fundamentally transform America, which means they don't love it. Trump loves it, and he loves the American people. And I'll say it again, and I'll say it every evening. Those of you who are on the fence, or I'm not voting because I don't like Trump, do you really hate Trump more than you love America? I've been saying this now for 2 months. Do you hate Trump more than you love your country? Because if you do, then there's something wrong with you. Because you have children and grandchildren, and you got to leave them a country that functions, where there's some level of individual liberty and free will. This is a disaster. We can't survive another 4 years with an open border. We can't survive another 4 years economically with this kind of drunken Marxist spending. If you love the state of Israel, it cannot survive with Harris cutting off arms, undermining the leader of Israel, and giving billions and billions of dollars to terrorist regimes. Those of you who are concerned about communist China, what do you think they're going to do under a Harris presidency? They're going to invade Taiwan. And they're hollowing out our military? I mean, come on. This is basic stuff. But here's the back and forth. Peter Doocy and the idiot spokesman for the idiot. Cut 13, go.
President Biden is fond of saying, show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. If he's got money for people in Lebanon right now, without Congress having to come back, what does it say about his values? There's not enough money right now for people in North Carolina who need it. That's not misinformation.
Wait, no, that is your whole premise of the question is misinformation, sir. What you do? Yes, it's misinformation.
Is there money to send to Lebanon right now?
I just mentioned to you that we provided more than $200 million to folks who are impacted in the area, and I just shared with you that people are deciding not to. People are deciding not to.
Wait. To Congress that there's not enough money to help people.
We're
in North
talking
Carolina
about the SBA disaster loan.
That's money for people in North Carolina,
and that's important. And people in North Carolina need that. Wait, this is nothing new. Peter, this is nothing new. Congress comes together, they provide money, millions of dollars, for disaster relief. We're asking them to do the job that they have been doing for some time.
From a letter that President Biden sent to Johnson, McConnell, Schumer, and Jeffries. The president's letter is not misinformation. Would you agree?
No, the way you're asking me the question is misinformation. There is money that we are allocating to the impacted areas, and there's money there to help people who truly need it. There are survivors who need the funding, and it's there.
That you don't like misinformation.
I actually said we have the money available to help survivors of Hurricane Helene and also Hurricane Milton. Now,
all right, that's enough. Who are we supposed to believe? Mayorkas, who says they're out of money, or her says we've given $250 million. Now look how stupid that is. What do you mean you've given $250? The people need water. They need necessities. They need food. They need clothing. They need stuff. They can't go to the ATM machine and withdraw money. And they're talking about $750 per person. Maybe that adds up to $250 million. Maybe it doesn't. People need to subsist. They need the basics. There are no grocery stores that are functioning. There's no 7-Eleven. How stupid is this? Even the comments she's making don't make any sense. They didn't pre-position the supplies that they needed to pre-position. And all we keep hearing is they're doing extraordinary work, extraordinary work. What is it, day 9? Nobody's attacking the 82nd Airborne or the 101st. I know they're extraordinary. I know they'll do what they need to do. But when the commander-in-chief sends them in a week after the fact, how many people can survive more than 3 days without fresh water? Very few. You know, I've always said if we rely on the government to eat, we'll starve to death. If we rely on the government for water, we'll die of thirst. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris and her ilk, they want to control more and more of your government. More and more of the private sector and grow the government. They want to control your health care. They can't even deal with FEMA. They can't even secure the border. They're running the debt through the roof, but they want more power. Why? Because the bottom line is this. They're power hungry. Good times and bad. They're power hungry. Marxists are power hungry. Democrat apparatchiks are power hungry. That's the bottom line. They want control. That's why they hate an independent Supreme Court. That's why they hate a secure border, because they can't control the population, so they import a new population. That's why they want to eliminate the filibuster rule, so they can ram through a one-time faction, things that we cannot reverse. That's why they appoint judges like this Tanya Chutkin, or whatever the hell the idiot's name is. Bomb throwers. Bomb throwers. That's why they do what they do. Fundamental transformation. Revolution by immigration. Redistribution of wealth. What the hell does this have to do with our Constitution and a free society? Nothing. Nothing. If you read 2 books, you don't have to read any. American Marxism and the Democrat Party Hates America, you'll understand the whole thing. Read one and then the other. Or get the audio. I don't care. Or get nothing. I'm just telling you. It's all there in plain English. Who they are, what they are, how they behave, how they're conducting themselves. Let's go back and let's think about the founding of the nation. Do you think the founders of our government would say, why don't we bring people into the country who are gang members? Why don't we bring people into the country who are going to harm the country and our fellow citizens? You think they would do that? You think they would say, let's flow money to governments, to countries that hate us and hate our allies? You think they would agree to that? When you look at your Constitution, it's yours, it's not hers. When you look at your Constitution, it is set up. It is a complex, even complicated document. They're trying to figure out ways for power to check power. Power to check power. That's how you sustain liberty. And even then, societies that are created that way don't survive forever, in perpetuity. They hate the Constitution. They're constantly attacking free speech, the Bill of Rights, separation of powers. They're attacking the independence of the court, dehumanizing the constitutionalists on the court, just as they dehumanize other people they can't stand, whether it's Netanyahu or Trump or whomever. The Constitution is built to limit people like Kamala Harris. It's built to limit people like Bernie Sanders. And they're blowing through it. This election is about the Constitution. It's about the principles in the Declaration of Independence. It's also, by the way, about the moral principles in the Ten Commandments and the Golden Rule and all these things we were raised on. Because Marxism, centralized government, a growing police state with a ubiquitous bureaucracy, a relative handful of politicians and masterminds making the decisions, that is a form of totalitarianism. Now, you got to vote. You got to vote early. You got to help other people to get out and vote while your vote still matters. That's what Elon Musk means. He means you can go through the motions and vote after this election, but it won't matter because most of the government will be enshrined within a bureaucracy that is not touchable by the voter, by the American people. It will be immune from voting. It'll be immune from we the people. That's what Elon Musk is talking about, because the man's read about totalitarian regimes. So have I. So you'll go through the motions. They'll have elections. But they won't matter. They won't matter. If there's early voting in your state, vote now. Vote now. I urge you.
Mark Levin. Making your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
Folks, I want to have a serious discussion with you here about Kamala Harris. I know everybody's having laughs about her 60 Minutes interview, and CBS greatly edited the interview with respect to Israel because of things she said and the illiterate nature in which she speaks. She goes on to Howard Stern. Howard Stern got wealthy and famous, pushing sexism and porn obsession and racism and vulgarism and womanizing stuff. And I'm not saying he did it, but this was the core of his program. And she goes on that show. She goes on The View, where you have really some nasty, awful people. She's going on Colbert, who's a Democrat, basically surrogate. The American people deserve a lot better than this. She is immature. She's not smart. She doesn't work hard. She is an ideologue. She's manipulative and is easy to be manipulated. This is a frightening prospect. A frightening prospect. Nobody listens to Howard Stern anymore. A tiny percentage of the American people watch The View and Colbert. She's talking to the same people who support her. Her 60 Minutes interview was a disaster for her, but even CBS cleaned it up somewhat. Look at her pick for vice president. There couldn't be a more awful choice. And for almost 4 years as vice president, she literally did absolutely nothing. Nothing. She admits she did nothing on the border. But she did nothing. They didn't want her near the White House. They didn't want her in public. Her ratings were in the dumpster up till about 2 months ago, where they recreated her. They don't want her engaging with serious people. Ladies and gentlemen, we're a little over 3 weeks away from selecting the next president of the United States. I don't find this funny at all. She's got surrogates out there all over the place, lying to us. All they do is attack Trump. She's got hundreds of millions of dollars. The campaign has said that they're going to use that money to rip Trump to shreds. They lie about Trump's position on abortion, on Project 2025, in vitro fertilization. They're still talking about him as if he's Hitler. The dehumanization's going on and on and on. And that's why I say you've got to make a decision. Your friends, family, others have to make a decision. Do you hate Trump more than you love America? Kamala Harris is not qualified to be president. She's not even qualified to be vice president. She's demonstrated that. I'm not talking about her age or her gender or her race. I'm talking about her as a human being. The idea that people are going to cast a vote for this person is simply because they either hate Trump and can't get over it, or it's a matter of baseball. It's one team versus another. But if you love your country, there is no way you could possibly vote for somebody like this. No way. 4 years of this will be a disaster. We will be in a war with China, perhaps Russia. Israel could easily be defeated because she hates Israel. She's an Islamist. Her father was an Islamist Marxist. Her pastor's the same thing. She's truly a radical, so she's going to lean on her Marxist, Islamist ideology. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, we know the real Kamala, but unfortunately, most of the nation does not. The real Kamala tells an intern, don't look into my eyes. So upsetting the intern's father that he wrote an entire op-ed about it. The real Kamala Harris can't get along with her staff. 92% turnover on the vice president's staff in 3 years. Nobody's ever heard of anything like this. She drops F-bombs left and right. And look who she marries, this guy, Doug Emhoff. Doug Emhoff is a fraud, a phony. Doug Emhoff is a misogynist.
We have another piece in the Daily Mail that he was known in his law firm as hitting on the women. Totally improper. We have a story in the Daily Mail that he slapped the woman so hard that she twirled around. He impregnates, what was it? The babysitter? The nanny? I mean, this guy's a sleazeball. A sleazeball. But the Praetorian Guard in the media, which is filled with sleazeballs like this, they protect her. They protect her. They have no regard for a free press, no regard for professional journalism. And so this is a big deal. People are going to have to really start thinking about what they want here. This isn't a senator from California, an attorney general from California, DA in San Francisco. We're talking about the president of the United States. She didn't get a single vote in 2020 in the primary. She didn't get a single vote because she never ran in a primary this time around. She didn't have a real convention. They had a phony convention where she already had been picked, virtually. And so now she wants to get your vote. And I'm telling you, America, listen to me, America, this is serious. It's not funny. It's not a joke. The ruling class and their media are destroying this country for power and money. Now we have the pseudo-news begins. Remember what I wrote about in Unfreedom of the Press? Pseudo-news headlines weeks before Election Day. You have a loathsome gossip author, Bob Woodward. He times the release of a new book and book excerpts filled with trash talk, to use against Donald Trump. His colleagues in the corporate media, already desperately all in for Harris, use the excerpts as concocted news, run with headlines, force the Trump campaign to respond, and so forth. Meanwhile, Rome, that is America, burns, and Woodward gets richer. These people don't give a damn about our country. Kamala Harris doesn't. She'll destroy our healthcare system. She's destroyed our border. She intends to do more. She'll destroy merit. She'll destroy any notion of a colorblind society. I'm telling you, folks, she has no respect for the office of the presidency any more than she had respect for the vice presidency. She's immature. She's over her head. She's incompetent. She's barely literate. And she's cold-blooded. What she did with DeSantis today was disgusting. She's never attended a pre-hurricane meeting. I broke that story nationally yesterday or the day before. Hurricane Helene. We have this massive hurricane about to hit Florida, and she's on Howard Stern. What do you women think about Howard Stern? I'm just curious. Howard Stern. Pretty sick. He's become quite the putz, by the way. But in any event, I want you to listen to something today. It's kind of gotten drowned out from all the rest. I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to President Trump yesterday at a remembrance event on October 7th. I want you to listen to this. Cut 17, go.
As you know, Hamas has now been severely degraded, and Hezbollah has recently been dealt very, very powerful, crippling blows. With strength and the right leadership, the dawn of a new, more harmonious Middle East is finally within our reach. It's finally within our reach. But you have no idea the role that the United States has to play in order to get that ball over the goal line. We have to get it into the end zone. And if it's not the United States, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We have to be able to get it done and get it done properly and get back to a wonderful, beautiful way of life. You have to be able to do it. You have to finish what you began, and you have to finish it quickly. So here is my commitment to you on the solemn date. I will not allow the Jewish state to be threatened with destruction. I will not allow another Holocaust of the Jewish people. I will not allow a jihad to be waged on America or our allies, and I will support Israel's right to win its war on terror, and it has to win it fast. No matter what happens, it has to go fast.
There's no confusion there. There's no talking out of both sides of your mouth. That received almost no attention. Almost no attention. Because the media want to tamp it down. They don't want Jewish voters or Christian voters who support the state of Israel or other voters to even hear what Donald Trump said. Kamala Harris doesn't say any of this. Israel has the right to defend itself. Trump said Israel's right to win its war on terror, and it has to win it fast. And it has to win it with the backing of the United States of America. How about anti-Semitism? Here's Donald Trump again yesterday, October 7th, Remembrance Day. Cut 18, go.
Almost as shocking as October 7th itself is the outbreak of anti-Semitism that we have all seen in its wake. I never thought I was going to see this. Never, ever. This is so incredible to be witnessing. Whoever thought? We thought this was very, very rarefied, putrid air. We never thought we'd see it, and we certainly never thought we'd see it in this country. And a lot of that has to do with the leadership of this country. This attack, yeah, well, that's true. We need leadership. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's very sad to see. I never thought I'd see it. This attack should have rallied the entire world in support of the Jewish people and the Jewish homeland. Instead, an ancient scourge of anti-Jewish hatred. And this was something we thought was left to hundreds and thousands of years ago. I mean, this was something we never thought could happen. The anti-Jewish hatred has returned even here in America, in our streets, our media, and our college campuses, and within the ranks of the Democrat Party in particular. Not in the Republican Party, I will tell you that. It's not in the Republican Party.
And then in comparison, because that's the choice, Trump or Harris, this is in the Daily Mail. CBS News appears to have edited the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris to show the Democrat 2024 hopeful in a more positive light. Social media erupted in criticism of the vice president's word-salad response to a question about the Israeli-Hamas war. But after the episode aired on 60 Minutes on Monday night, the version that was put onto the show's official YouTube page did not include Harris's nonsensical answer and instead included a truncated and more straightforward response. Host Bill Whitaker asked Harris about whether Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was listening to the U.S. and whether the administration had any sway over the Jewish state's decision-making and its conflict with Hamas terrorists operating out of Gaza. Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy where it needs to happen in the region. Her answer was riddled with long pauses and hesitant wording. The interview aired Monday, the same day that marked the one-year anniversary of the start of the Middle Eastern conflict after Hamas terrorists invaded Israel and carried out the largest single massacre of Jewish people since the Holocaust. It appears that CBS decided to edit the vice president's answer. Instead, the new version on YouTube has Harris appearing much more decisive and sure-footed in her answer. CBS and Paramount did not respond to a request comment from the Daily Mail regarding the edited clip. You see the difference, America? I played you the unedited Donald Trump. He made it abundantly clear where he stands and what he wants to do. Kamala Harris, it's not a word salad, it's equivocation. She surrounded herself with anti-Semites, with Islamists, with self-hating Jews, many of whom worked for or in the prior Obama administration. She's made it clear that if she becomes president, she's going to call together and have a special meeting on looking at the relationship with the state of Israel.
When it comes to the United States, she lies about the border. She lies about the bill. People are being enslaved as I speak. She's the vice president. She hasn't lifted a finger. Photo ops. Photo ops. You go on Howard Stern, who's a joke. You go on The View, which is pathetic. You go on Colbert, which is pathetic. And this is how you intend to campaign with the American people? This is how dictators campaign. You go on friendly media, basically state-run media that burps up, regurgitates what the monopoly party, the Democrat Party, and their government want you to say. It's the best she can do. They go on 60 Minutes. Whitaker had a good interview, but apparently the CBS bosses decided to tighten up her answer about Israel because she doesn't unequivocally support Israel. Whenever she talks about Israel, she needs to talk about the Palestinians. I want to make another point clear. I want to make it clear to the whole world. I want to make it clear to the journalists. I want to make it clear even to my colleagues on TV. A Hamas senior official has said, out of the 41,000 people who've died in Gaza, 80% were Hamas terrorists or Hamas terrorist family members. 80%. That's a report. That's a fact that came out of his mouth. 80%. And the reason is the other 20%, which would be lower, is because Hamas kills its own citizens by the way they fight their terrorist wars and they kill Israeli citizens. Just as Hezbollah kills citizens and Iran kills its own citizens. Enough of these lies. The media are contemptible. They say, oh, if you criticize us, it's like Stalin. No, you are like Stalin. You are like Pravda. That's the problem. That's why there's The Blaze. That's why there's Breitbart. That's why there's the Daily Caller and the Daily Signal. That's why there's Right Scoop. That's why there's conservative and truly free media platforms developing all over the place. All over the place.
Mark Levin. You're listening to the best of Mark Levin.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
There you go. There you go. There you go. I hope the Trump campaign's listening. That is a big TV ad. The open borders, the disastrous foreign policy, the massive debt, inflation, crime. She says there's not a damn thing she would have done differently. In fact, she was a part of every one of those decisions. I would have done nothing different than Biden did. Period. That's why they try and hide her. They try and hide her like an ant, a mentally disturbed ant in the attic. But every now and then she's got to show some ankle. But it's even more than that, Kamala Harris. Even more than that. What about the border? Bill Whitaker, who did a very good job, I thought, interviewing. Far better than ABC and CBS and CNN and all the other frauds, phonies, and fools. Even though CBS heavily edited her answer to Israel, she does not support Israel. My fellow Jews better wake the hell up before it's too late. The Israeli Jews support Trump, by the way, over Harris by more than 2-1. By more than 2-1, because they're facing the enemy. They and their children are fighting their enemy. Back here, it's easy to sit on your ass and be a left-wing Democrat. Kamala Harris, again on 60 Minutes with Bill Whitaker, about immigration. Let's listen very carefully. Very tough question, you know. Cut 9, go.
I've been covering the border for years, and so I know this is not a problem that started with your administration.
Correct.
But there was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years of your administration. As a matter of fact, arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump. Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies?
Now, let's stop right there for a moment for me to add this little footnote. And during those 3 years, they told you the border was secure. They didn't need any legislation. They didn't need a damn thing. They told you the border was secure. And at the same time, they were secretly flying in what turns out to be 1 million illegal aliens from all over the world, including Venezuela, including gang members, into this country and landing them throughout the country, particularly, by the way, in battleground states. We now see that a disproportionate number of illegal aliens were put in battleground states because this is all about politics. It's about power. It is a grotesque abuse of power. And so for those 3 years, this is not memory lane. This is a fact. They told you that that border was secure. Now they hang on this piece of legislation that even more than half a dozen Democrats voted against that could never pass because it enshrines 95% of what Biden and Harris have done on the border. It's that simple. So if you like what's going on the border, if you like these Venezuelan gangs coming into your communities and MS-13, if you like women sold into sex slavery, particularly women of color, if 325,000 children are missing, that's on their watch, according to the Inspector General. Their watch. Nobody else's. They take responsibility for nothing. They're not held accountable for anything. Harry Truman said the buck stops here on his desk, but not with these people. They lie. They deceive. They're dishonest. They're pathological. And Bill Whitaker, first one, not CNN, not ABC, not CBS. Finally, this gentleman says, okay, there have been problems in the past and so forth, but illegal immigration arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump. Was it? You know what? This guy's so good. Ask the question again. Start at the top, Mr. Producer.
I've been covering the border for years. And so I know this is not a problem that started with your administration.
Correct.
But there was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years of your administration. As a matter of fact, arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump. Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem. And solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem. Okay.
But the numbers did quadruple.
And the numbers today, because of what we have done, we have cut the flow of illegal immigration by half.
She's a liar. And I want you to listen to me carefully because this is what they do on the left and this is what Harris and Biden do. They're no longer counting the people who use the apps. They tell people throughout Central and South America, use the apps, and elsewhere, by the way, contact us, and we will bring you into the United States through a port of entry, or we will fly you through into the United States. They don't count them as illegal aliens, even though they're illegal aliens, and without any statute. They say, oh, we need a statute. Without any statute, they defy long-existing immigration law. So they're purposely bringing in illegal aliens by the hundreds of thousands, but they're not counting them as illegal aliens. That's number one. Number two, if illegal aliens come through the port of entry, they're not counting them as illegal aliens. So they're fixing the numbers. I don't mean reforming them. I mean fixing the books. They did the same thing. They did the same thing with the labor force numbers, the job numbers. All of a sudden, oh, by the way, 818,000, we were off. You're off 818,000, so you didn't create all those jobs? No. So this is the same thing. Right here. But his point is still well taken. Go ahead.
cut the flow of fentanyl by half, but we need Congress to be able
Okay, enough. I'm not going to just keep pushing her BS. Oh, boy. Her BS. This has nothing to do with Congress. Congress passed laws. They're called immigration laws. They violated the immigration laws. I was the first and the only one for a very long time to try and tell the House Oversight Committee and the House Judiciary Committee, stop focusing on the financial. You should impeach Biden for violating our immigration laws. He's not upholding the laws like he's required to do as President of the United States. Other people have since said, remember when I said? No, we don't remember when you said. But that's been my position for many years now during the course of this administration. And the fact of the matter is they broke the law. Now they want to pass a new law. They break the laws all the time. They break separation of powers. They break the Constitution. They twist it into a pretzel. And all of a sudden, a law that received over 6 Democrats voted against it, and that would enshrine 95% of what's going on, including 2 million illegal aliens every single year. The flights would continue, and they don't even count them as illegal aliens. Lawyers paid for by you for illegal aliens, and catch and release would be enshrined in federal law. That's in the bill. And it would be nice if one of these damn phony journalists would get off their ass and read the bill. But they're not going to. Because they're not journalists. Right, Jake? Right? Right, Wolf? Turns out Wolf is a pussycat, Mr. Producer. That's right, kitty cat. Right, Andrea? Andrea Mitchell. Right, everybody? You're frauds, phonies, and fakes. Cut 10, go.
Your critics and the columnists say.
Okay.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for. And I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States. And I have been traveling our country. And I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground.
Okay, no, she hasn't. She hasn't been listening to folks. She only goes to events where there are millionaires and billionaires donating to her various campaigns and raising money for others. She doesn't go and meet the people. Is she going to meet the people the last 2 months? Huh? Is that what she does? She goes out and meets the people and looks for common ground? She was the most radical partisan senator in the United States Senate. She never participated in any bipartisan bill. The most radical vice president in American history voted to break one tie vote after another for the most radical agenda in American history. No. She's not looking for common ground. She's not bipartisan. She's a radical Marxist Islamist who doesn't give a damn about you.
Mark Levin. The Great One makes your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
You know, one of the things that is really not debatable, Donald Trump was an extraordinarily competent president. Extraordinarily competent and compassionate. And I know what the media try to do. They try and change the entire history, rewrite it and all, but he didn't let things slip through the cracks. He wouldn't have been on the beach hours before a hurricane. He wouldn't have been away from Washington for 4 days fundraising. I just read that Kamala Harris has now raised $1 billion in her campaign. $1 billion. Kamala Harris is for Kamala Harris every step of her career. So, J.D. Vance, the Wall Street Journal today. It's an excellent piece. During times of crisis and war, presidential leadership is critical to cut through competing bureaucratic fiefs and protect Americans from death and devastation. The Biden-Harris response to Hurricane Helene, the deadliest
storm since Katrina has the people of the Southeast, and especially Appalachia, and that's where he was born, paying an extraordinary price for the administration's incompetence. Shortly after Helene made landfall in the U.S. on September 26, Joe Biden was at his house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Vice President Kamala Harris was flying between ritzy California fundraisers, hobnobbing with celebrities. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was in Los Angeles presiding over an awards ceremony. Before the storm, Ms. Harris had blown off her disaster response briefings, which were a staple of the Trump administration's disaster response planning. The lack of prioritization had real-world ramifications. Now, this is very important, which is exactly why the media are ignoring this. And so I'm reading it to you. When Ms. Harris and Mr. Biden flouted their duties, a bureaucratic bottleneck was delaying the deployment of active-duty military personnel to the western mountains of North Carolina. On October 2, 6 days after the storm made landfall, the Defense Department announced that 1,000 troops had been authorized to deploy to the hurricane response zone, including elements of the 82nd Airborne from Fort Liberty, North Carolina. These troops bring with them debris cleaning and water purification equipment, critical resources for communities with blocked roads and orders to boil drinking water. As evening fell on Friday, October 4th, fewer than half of the 1,000 troops were conducting operations and actually deployed to western North Carolina. Now, honestly, folks, if he hadn't written this and I wasn't reading it to you, you wouldn't know anything about this. The particulars of what failed to take place. Deployment delays became severe enough that North Carolina Senators Ted Budd and Tom Tillis issued a joint statement on October 4, calling for, quote, an active-duty military leader who has extensive experience with operations of this magnitude to lead moving forward, unquote. The statement seemed to have an effect. The rest of the active-duty forces were deployed by the evening of October 6, and the Pentagon authorized an additional 500, including advanced command and control resources. Now, in disaster response, every second counts. A week went by while the citizens of North Carolina suffered without the equipment and soldiers needed to save lives and begin recovery. This is the sort of bureaucratic hiccup that engaged political leaders solve. A competent leader would have ordered those men and women into motion earlier. Bureaucracy be damned. Ms. Harris and Mr. Biden treated the situation like a public relations disaster instead of a real one, and they're still doing that. Even the Obama administration was better at deploying assets in disaster zones. When an earthquake struck Haiti in 2010, it took just 2 days to deploy troops, including the 82nd Airborne, from Fort Liberty, then known, of course, Fort Bragg, to help with disaster recovery. Large numbers of active troops were deployed more rapidly during the Katrina response, which was sharply criticized at the time for being insufficient, and I'm sure Joe Biden was part of the cacophony. Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA staff are working hard. The agency's response to Helene has been praised in some quarters and criticized elsewhere. But it, too, has been the victim of misplaced Biden-Harris political priorities. Under Ms. Harris and Mr. Biden, FEMA has funneled millions and millions of dollars to non-governmental organizations whose stated goal is to facilitate mass migration into the United States. The effort stems from a White House directive to reorient FEMA's institutional focus away from U.S. citizens and toward aliens who either have no legal right to be here or whose legal status depends on the say-so of the Biden-Harris administration. Now, Mr. Biden and Ms. Harris have been sending that message since the beginning of their tenure. In 2021, Mayorkas directed FEMA to participate in a, quote, government-wide effort, unquote, to receive and shelter migrants. By 2023, FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell was testifying that although FEMA is not an immigration agency, it would, quote, continue to focus on supporting jurisdictions that are managing the care of migrants through our shelter and services program, unquote. Now, while some have claimed that the funding going to these programs is distinct from disaster relief funding, the same cannot be said for the attention and focus of the Biden-Harris officials. That all comes from the same limited supply. FEMA even seems to be picking winners and losers among the American people. In March 2023, FEMA hosted a panel titled, Helping the LGBTQL plus community Before Disasters, Preparedness and Mitigation Considerations. Ordinary Americans of all backgrounds know that especially when it comes to disaster relief,
Federal agencies exist to serve all Americans, not to give some groups special treatment. President Trump and I are realists, writes Vance. We know there's no perfect disaster recovery and that a storm like Helene will bring hardship to American towns no matter how well the government responds. But this wasn't the response that the people of western North Carolina deserved. As Hurricane Milton barrels toward Florida coast and Secretary Mayorkas claims FEMA is running out of disaster funds, it's time the Biden-Harris administration got its act together. It is right on point. And now you know why all the noise, all the attacks on Trump, all that Trump is un-American, Biden says today. Who the hell does that bastard think he is, anyway? Un-American. Does he think he is? Trump has put more money, has put his life on the line, more time on trying to save this country than Biden ever has. Biden got rich being a senator. Donald Trump got indicted. He tried to steal his business and his money. And he got shot. And Donald Trump's un-American? No, I don't think so. Donald Trump was and will be an extraordinarily competent president. Period. He prides himself on it. He doesn't tolerate fools and incompetence. He fires people. Biden promotes them. Just like Kamala Harris. Should have been fired a long time ago. But there she is. And what is she doing? Picking a fight with DeSantis. What is she doing? On with Colbert. Attacking Donald Trump and DeSantis. What is she doing? She does nothing. What has she ever done as vice president? Nothing. The border. Oh, I'm not the border czar. So then she runs down there for a photo op. She says she makes a call to the governor of Florida, who's already been in touch with Biden and FEMA. Says he didn't get a call. But he says, even if I did, to what end? What was the purpose? Yesterday, 24 hours before this horrific hurricane is about to hit Florida, she went on the Howard Stern show. Howard Stern, who humiliated women, who was a misogynist, who couldn't stop talking about pornography and lesbians. And that's how he became rich. That's how he became famous. Now Howard Stern, woke, liberal, pathetic, monotonous, trying to rebuild himself and change his legacy the way Kamala Harris is. Then she goes to The View. Nasty, failed, pathetic women on this show that have destroyed that program. Barbara Waters started The View. The View was supposed to be many views, not one view. But there you go. And then on Colbert, she uses the opportunity to show you that she can sip a Miller beer. Sip it. And then, of course, attack Donald Trump. And this is the same Kamala Harris. The same Kamala Harris who abuses her staff in the most horrendous ways, and her husband. Her husband, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, all the rest of them won't report on it. Even some of our friends won't report on it. Her husband has a problem. He brutally slapped a woman. That's the allegation in the Daily Mail. He's free to sue them for defamation if they're wrong. So hard that she spun around. He impregnated his kid's babysitter. They kept that secret with a non-disclosure agreement. Gee, isn't that a crime in Manhattan? And now, of course, people are speaking off the record because they don't want retribution from his law firm. He was the head of litigation at a major law firm in L.A., and they write, the Daily Mail, from their sources, that he was crude, that he was perverse, that he was a scumbag in the way he treated women. But, of course, we can't have that out there now, can we? No, we can't. My goodness. What if the word got out? Then what? Just a quick comment. I've never been a big fan of Chris Cuomo, but I watched a clip of his on One Nation. I don't know if it was from yesterday or the day before. And I just want to say this. Kudos to you, Chris.
I don't know you. I've never met you. But what you had to say about October 7th, and what you had to say about the terrorists supporting violent individuals in the street, beating Jews, pulling the American flag, pulling the Israeli flag from them, you deserve kudos from me. Keep it up, and you'll get more kudos from me. But what you said was really profound, and I mean that.
Mark Levin. We're giving you nothing but the best of Mark Levin.
So Barack Obama is being called into campaign in Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania, around Pittsburgh and so forth. I hope they can run the numbers up there. I would just ask the people in that part of our country, in my state of Pennsylvania, don't you get sick and tired of these old politicians, quasi-Hollywood-type politicians dropping in and telling you who to vote for? What does Barack Obama have in common with anybody in western Pennsylvania right now? Guy's got 5 homes. They're all mansions. He's made a fortune since he's left the presidency. And he just shows up. Shows up because he's just so cool. He's just so persuasive. And he'll go there and he'll attack Trump and he'll make jokes and he'll fill his ego and all the rest of it. And even think back to his presidency. What the hell did he do for the African-American community? Literally nothing. And what did he do when it came to the hardworking men and women in fracking, in steel, in coal? He attacked you. He tried to put you out of business. That's what he did. I just want you to remember this. Barack Obama is enormously popular among the rich and the beautiful in Hollywood, a Martha's Vineyard, among the rich in Hyde Park area. That's it. He doesn't go back to communities that really need help. Doesn't go to Newark, New Jersey, or Camden, New Jersey, places I'm familiar with. He doesn't go to communities that really have it tough right now. Some presidents leave office, and they really contribute in a big way to certain aspects of our society, things that interest them. Obama's not one of them. He's not one of them. I hope what I'm saying is resonating, is understandable. Sometimes, I wonder, but I just want to explain this. When you look at these various centralized governments, heavily centralized governments, people can say whatever they want. They're for the people, equity, equality. We've heard it all. But usually it is it's a curtain to hide their real motives and their real interests, which is power. These people are power hungry, and they want to use the government to enrich themselves. Barack Obama has never invented anything. He's never produced anything. Neither is Michelle Obama. They're worth tens of millions of dollars. Al Gore's never invented anything. He's never created anything. He's never developed anything. He's worth tens of millions of dollars, and they've become this rich after they left office. They had power. If Al Gore hadn't been a vice president or a senator, he'd never be this wealthy. If Barack Obama, a community activist, if he hadn't been a senator and president, he'd never be this wealthy. They need government to get rich. Same with Biden. Biden would be probably a single attorney with a shingle hanging out handling divorce cases. I'm just guessing. But that's about it. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but he wouldn't be where he is today. So these people, first they seek power, then they seek wealth. And then they have power and wealth. And they reward their allies. Like George Soros was just awarded with 220 radio stations. They create solar energy. We need solar energy, but it just so happens that their buddies get extremely rich off of solar energy. And they destroy the competition. So we'll put the
the oil rigs out of business. We'll stop the fracking. What? Yes. So big centralized government isn't about the little guy. It's not about we the people. It's not about economic competition. It's not about equality or equity or any of it. Castro lived like a multimillionaire while his people were starving to death. Mao had women, all the food he wanted. He got fat. He got sick. He lived like a billionaire while his people were suffering. Un, over in North Korea, like his dad and his grandfather. People are eating grass. They're eating bugs. They have no life. They have no hope. They have nothing. But he lives like a billionaire. Xi, communist China. Anything he wants, he gets. Everything he wants, he gets. They're not about the people. They're not Mahatma Gandhi. They're not anything like this. Putin, same thing. Obviously, different types of tyranny. Some are more aggressive and violent than others. But same in our country. Except for Donald Trump. He comes into office a billionaire. He didn't become a billionaire off of politics. He didn't become a billionaire because of some program that was created to help enrich him. He's a builder, a developer. He built an entire skyline. And, of course, they attack him. He's a billionaire. You know, Kamala Harris, she came from a middle-class family. First of all, she didn't. She's a liar. Both her parents were tenured professors. She worked at McDonald's. She can't even prove it. And when you raise it, oh, yes, she did. Oh, no, she didn't. Yes, she did. Okay, where? When? But it doesn't matter. They pretend, they lie, that they're of the people, they're for the people, while they're screwing the people. Donald Trump came up with another proposal today. Deduct interest on your car loans. You should be able to deduct it like you do your mortgage interest. Now, even some of our conservative friends are saying, you know, that's ridiculous. I want to remind them that before Ronald Reagan and the massive tax cuts of August of 1981, which were fantastic, which grew the economy, really, by the time Reagan left, by 30%, the economy grew 30%. We used to be able to deduct all interest on credit cards, on car loans, vehicle loans. Same with mortgage interest and so forth and so on. You could deduct it all. You could deduct it all. But Reagan said, no, we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to just slash taxes. And he slashed it, to be honest, more than anybody in modern history. And Trump did too. He followed up with it. And they said, oh, look at that. Tax cuts for billionaires. Well, the Democrats use your money, your taxes, the debt to enrich their friends who in turn give them $1 billion to run for president. Like Harris. Like Harris. This is the ruling class. These are the special interests who really do not want you to have opportunity. Let's turn the page, says Kamala Harris. Well, if we turn the page, then we broom her because she's the vice president. If Kamala Harris cared about the little guy, the average working person, union, non-union, the middle class, then why is the border wide open? If she cared about your community, you ladies in the suburbs who are overwhelmed by her charisma and her smarts and all the rest of it, then why is there crime through the wazoo? She doesn't support the cops. She opposes the cops. You parents out there, you know, the first organization to come out and endorse Kamala Harris literally within hours after she was chosen as the Democrat Party nominee was the American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weingarten. Right out of the box. Randy Weingarten, a Marxist, who does not believe that you parents should have control over your children, over their decision-making, over what they read, over their bodies, or anything else. She is a hard-left Marxist radical. She and the NEA and the rest have been destroying the public schools. You want parental control? You want parental notification? You want parental involvement? Kamala Harris isn't going to do that. She rejects all that. And yet the women in the suburbs were told, Obviously, if you listen to this show, I'm not talking about you, but the others. The women in the suburbs were told, abortion's the... She even lies about that. Let me try this one more time before the election. Roe v. Wade set up a trimester system, I'll call it. In the third trimester, states were free to regulate abortions, and they did, some more than others. Kamala Harris does not support that. When they talk about putting Roe back in place, she does not mean that. She believes in abortion right up to birth. Her running mate signed a law that repealed a law that required doctors to care for babies after botched abortions. He repealed it. He lied during the debate. Look it up. It's on the internet. Just look it up. The law's right there. And Kamala Harris supports that. The Democrat Party supports that. But they're running hundreds of millions of dollars in ads telling you all they want to do is get Roe v. Wade back. They even used an example of a woman who died from Georgia. They said because she couldn't get an abortion, she had to leave the state. That's not what happened. She took an abortion pill. It had a terrible effect. Complications took place. She went to the hospital. The doctors apparently, as I read the facts of this case, tried, but ineffectively, to save her life. It had nothing to do with abortion. It had to do with the abortion pill, but she keeps bringing it up. That's the best example they have. And they hope to ride that right into the White House. Ride that right into the White House. It's appalling.